What's up, ninjas and ninjettes? Welcome to another episode of the Exposure Ninja Digital Marketing Podcast. My name's Tim Cameron Kitchen. I'm head ninja at Exposure Ninja and lead cat. And this show is all about helping you to generate more leads and sales from your website. In this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Steve Toth, who is, I'd say, he's SEO royalty. Steve runs his own consultancy, but he's also the SEO manager, or was the SEO manager for FreshBooks. In this episode, we dig into FreshBooks SEO strategy, particularly around some extremely competitive keywords that they rank for. So we talk through what the idea behind that is, why they're targeting these phrases, and we also talk about what Steve's done to enable the site to rank for such competitive terms. And we also talk about the user journey and how people use the pages as well. If you're listening to this on audio, you can check out the video if you go to our YouTube channel. So if you just go on YouTube and type in Exposure Ninja Podcast, you'll find the video version. And in the video version, you'll actually see on the screen the pages that we're talking about. So you can get a bit of a feel for the user experience elements that we're covering. Don't forget, if you want some help with your own digital marketing, whatever business that you're in, you can request a free SEO and website review from Exposure Ninja. What you do is go to exposureninja.com, click the big button that says request my review. What will happen is we'll ask you a few questions about your business and your goals. And then one of our team will carry out a video review of your site. We'll show you on the screen in front of you some of the changes to make, some of the tweaks that you can implement to drive an increase in your organic visibility and your traffic, but also increase your conversion rate as well. We'll also cover other traffic channels for you too, so things like pay-per-click and social media, and see if there's any low-hanging fruit there. We'll also deconstruct what your competitors are doing and show you any areas that they might be letting things slip a little bit so you can exploit them ruthlessly for profit. Love it. Anyway, without further ado, enjoy the show with Steve Toth from SEO Notebook. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Tim.
So, as you know, in this podcast, we go behind the scenes for a particular marketing strategy or channel that's been working awesome for you to grow a business. We find out what you did, how well it worked, and what you've learned. So, ready to lift the curtain?
Let's do it.
Cool. So, we're going to be talking about a particular content strategy, which it's fair to say we've beaten almost to death, to within an inch of its death on the show, which is talking about blogs and using content to rank for informational terms to then convert people. But you've done it at a pretty massive scale because in your day job, you're actually the SEO manager for FreshBooks, right?
Well, I actually left FreshBooks in February full time, but I'm now working with them as a contractor. So I have my own business, but I also am very much involved still in the usually 2 days a week working with that company.
Awesome. So I think probably everyone would know FreshBooks, but maybe for those who don't, what is it about? And maybe more importantly, what sort of traffic are you trying to get onto the FreshBooks site?
Yeah, so FreshBooks is an accounting and invoicing platform for small businesses who basically, don't want to learn accounting, but still obviously need to do many things at like tax time and invoicing their clients and such. So the software is built very much with owners in mind and doesn't have a lot of the sort of, it's basically just really easy to use and I use it and I think it's fantastic. So it's been around for 15 years and Toronto-based company, and just really good software. And we've got a bunch of customers around the world. And in terms of traffic, it's really like that small business owner is the target. We obviously want to sort of cater to not just like very small businesses, but small businesses can still have like a lot of high revenue. So basically looking to attract anybody who has a service-based small business.
Okay, awesome. Obviously a ridiculously competitive market, absurdly so.
Yeah, and over the years it's become more and more saturated, but FreshBooks had a really good early advantage because we were pretty much the first cloud-based accounting software way back when everyone was doing it on desktop.
Got it. So I've been digging into where the site's at with SEO, and it's pretty hot, to put it mildly. Very aggressive SEO campaign by the looks of it. You're going after phrases like invoice template, which you're ranking number one for. So some impressive results. Just for someone who's listening who maybe hasn't been thinking about this as much as maybe you have, why would FreshBooks be targeting someone who's searching for invoice template, and what's the kind of user journey with a phrase like that?
Yeah, so for us, like when we set out to rank for that keyword, it was really about where is the volume, right? So we needed to find a keyword that had the super high volume that was relevant to the business, right? So even since we started optimizing for this, the search volume has risen by 100,000. So it's up to 300,000 people per month globally searching this keyword. And basically, we felt that anybody who was ready to make an invoice, who needed an invoice template, was ready to try FreshBooks as an alternative to a Word or Excel or PDF template. So basically, yeah, we saw that volume and we chased it, and it went pretty well.
Awesome. So broad brushstrokes, what are the different components of a strategy to target a phrase like that?
Yeah, great question. So it goes well beyond just one keyword and one page. So we actually noticed that there are people search invoice template, yeah, like I said, 300,000 times a month, but also people search for things like invoice template Word, invoice template PDF, or invoice template contractor. Like they search for the type of file and also the type of business. So like freelance writer, graphic designer would be two other examples. So we didn't just target all of those professions and file types on one page. We actually created 110 pages in total, targeting all of those different keywords.
So you built, in ninja terminology, we call this a knowledge base, essentially around one single group of keywords. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was like first of all, like just the research on like actually deciding what long tails to kind of go after. We looked at basic search volume for everything. But we also looked at like our own customer data and like how people were identifying themselves when they joined FreshBooks, because we do ask a number of questions. So we were actually able to look and see like what people were calling themselves, and then checking that against search volume. Of course, we weren't able to use everything like that, but we were able to get like I said, 110 pages, all very relevant stuff.
That's awesome. I want to ask you about the formatting and the content on those pages a bit later, but what you've just mentioned, I think, is really interesting and possibly underrated in doing keyword research, which is surveying customers or asking the sales team, for example, how customers are identifying, rather than just saying, well, here are all the phrases that have the most search volume necessarily. Of course, you've gone after volume, but you're also using common sense and customer feedback to get those keywords. I think that's something that maybe some SEOs and people starting in SEO can be tempted to skip over, because they think that the data holds the ultimate clues.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky to have, like we don't talk about our specific customer numbers, but we're lucky to have a high volume of people starting trials and upgrading to the software. So we have, we basically looked at like any occurrence, like, so say like a person identified themselves as, an illustrator. We looked at like any occurrences of two or more in that customer feedback, and then looked at those and considered those for the pages.
Got it. Okay. So I'm just putting myself in the shoes of someone who's listening, and they might be the solo marketing manager for the company they work for. They might have a very small team, and they're thinking, holy moly, Steve's doing 110 posts for a single phrase. We're just not going to be able to touch anything like this. Obviously, you didn't write all of them immediately, right? This was something where you researched them, you put them in a list, and then how did you choose how to prioritize them and how much focus to put on each one? But do you just go through all of them and write a few words for each, or do you pick the first batch and go heavy with them?
Well, we definitely put the most attention on the main page, and the main page still definitely earns a lion's share of the traffic. But I think it is. We were able to get some paid search data because we're still bidding on those keywords and knowing which ones have the highest propensity to go from visit to trial and then trial to paid. Mm-hmm. So we knew that those were ones to pay attention to. But if I'm being honest, we actually did write everything together at the same time. It wasn't a fast process. It might have taken 1.5 months or so. But yeah, we basically just we wrote them all at once, and then But if I were one of your listeners and thinking that's not practical, I would definitely go and look at which ones your competitors have prioritized, and try and probably base your decisions off of that.
Makes sense. So what sort of guidelines, I'm assuming here that you didn't write all of them on your own in a month and a half. So what sort of guidelines did you give to the writing team to create content that you were pretty confident was going to rank?
Yeah, so like I said, I paid most attention to that main page. So that main page had every last H2 and H3 detailed, and very much use these synonyms here, and kind of it was very, very finely tuned, and we continue to finely tune that page, with each update that happens. But I think the main focus for the rest of the pages was basically shorter word count than the main page, but still original content, and that was our real big thing that we knew we needed to do. And yes, things went pretty well. I mean, our writers were great. I mean, we were blessed to have a writer who really understood and was committed to the project. But I think it's all in that preparation. So it's all in that brief.
That's awesome. I want to ask you about the main invoice templates page. I'm guessing you know it pretty well by now. The most interesting thing to me about this page is I was expecting to see a page that was primarily article, and as soon as you go onto the page, you've basically got 2 calls to action right at the top of the page. There's not actually necessarily content above the fold. Is this the original version of the page? Have you iterated this over time? What's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, we basically wanted to give the user what they came to the page for. So those 2 options of download an invoice template or try FreshBooks are both means to that end, and obviously most of the people choose the free version, but we basically on that left hand side wanted to make the FreshBooks option the most appealing possible, while leaving the right hand option very plain. Yep. And not that attractive. So that was kind of the thought there.
I mean, it's superb. The right hand option is, it's a free invoice template, so it's technically what they've come onto the site for. For those who aren't looking at the video version of this, it's a the above the fold section is split into two on desktop. On the left hand side, you've got, says the best way to invoice. You've got this nice juicy big green button which is create my free invoice, and we've got some lovely colourful invoices under that, and I'm guessing that's the FreshBooks free trial. And then on the right hand side, you've got the free invoice template, and there's this smaller kind of grey wilted looking invoice, which I mean still looks good, and on another site that would be a compelling CTA, but it's nowhere near as attractive as the other one. Steve, how much of the focus on this page has come from CRO, either you or someone else in the team, and how much of it was controlled by SEO? Because I think for a lot of businesses, as they start to get larger, they find those two elements are kind of sometimes conflicting, and it's quite difficult to get agreement on things like page layout.
Yeah, I think the layout was fairly like we actually have split tested other versions on some of the long tail pages that are out right now, which we're doing and potentially rolling that out to the main page, but not just yet. But what we've done is just done like little tweaks to things. So for example, like it says create my free invoice instead of just like start trial or whatever. So we wanted to make those things a little bit more personal. And if I could just give one kind of tip that we did just to improve the optimization of that page. So when those two panels stack on mobile, the free invoice template version actually stacks at the top. And because of the mobile first indexing, we wanted the keyword at the top of the page to appear most relevant. But when we actually see it on desktop, we see that on the right-hand side, and our eye immediately goes to the left-hand side.
Love it. Love it. So what made you, I'm just curious now, on desktop, why isn't that on the left-hand side, given that you'd expect people's eyes to gravitate towards the right-hand side, which is the CTA that you actually want them to go for?
We didn't actually test that, if I'm being 100% honest, but it was like we I guess the thought of the designer was that we read left to right, so we saw that there. And we also, regarding the mobile stuff, like we knew that most of the traffic was coming through desktop, and that most of our conversions, our conversion rate was much higher. So we had less of a, because if you think about like downloading a Word template on your phone is probably not an ideal way to create things. So we weren't too worried about that. And we felt like the SEO benefits were a lot higher with that stacking.
Got it. So I want to ask you about searcher intent. You mentioned there that the reason for focusing the page around actually giving people templates rather than writing a long piece about templates, about the things that they should be including in templates and all that type of stuff, was because you were conscious that, you know, that was the intent of the user. How important, aside from the benefits of that approach on conversion rate, how important is it in Google's, for Google's algorithms, do you think, to match the intent of the searcher with the content that's on the page?
Yeah, well, I think we kind of tried to have our cake and eat it too with this one. So we knew a few things, right? So we had a, I'm not sure if we still have it, to be honest, but we had a heat map at one point on this page, both for our paid search and SEO version. And we knew that like the users very rarely even scroll down like 25% of the page, right? So we kind of focused the sort of conversion elements and like, really getting that user to sign up for a trial in that first 25% and especially above the fold. And then we kind of just accepted that 75% below that, we could just, kind of go ham on SEO content. And internal linking and stuff like that. So we weren't too we like, and what I mean by having our cake and eat it too is that we still put a lot of content on that page. We put it in the area that we knew most users weren't going to scroll to.
Kind of a bit like how everyone used to bury their e-commerce category page content at the bottom because they knew that people weren't going to the category page to read, but it needed some SEO content on there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, in e-com, it's tough to, I mean, I have e-com, a couple of e-com clients actually, and like it's difficult to put that anywhere else. But yeah, I feel like, Google still needs that content at the end of the day. We couldn't just put up a page with just saying like free invoice templates at the top. So that content also helps us rank for different variations like bill template. A lot of people call invoices bills. So like just ranking for those other synonyms. That content was super useful.
Got it. And what did you do with link acquisition for, I guess if we're talking about the invoice template stuff, for this group of pages? Have you had any link outreach going on, or what's the strategy there?
Yeah, definitely. There's like some link acquisition strategy. We basically, in some cases, looked at sites that were already linking to FreshBooks, and asked them to link to this like free resource that we had. So we reached out to them and we said, like, link me baby one more time. And just, I don't know if anybody can get that Britney Spears reference. It's getting a bit dated now, but
is that how you said it? That's how you have to say it for the best effect, right?
Yeah, and the subject line, and we got pretty good response rate from that. Just people wanting to feature the free version of what we did, because what we noticed was there were a lot of posts over the years on like best invoicing tools, best tools for entrepreneurs, best tools for small business owners that all mentioned FreshBooks, like 2,000 of them over the past 15 years. So we had like a really good list of sites to reach out to. And a lot of them agreed and linked to that piece of content from there.
Awesome. I also noticed in my pre-show snooping that you happen to be the moderator of a Facebook group called SEO Ranking Signals.
SEO Signals Lab, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, great way to crowdsource info.
Yeah, I use that site all the time, just bouncing off like ideas and researching and stuff. And I also have my newsletter, SEOnotebook.com, that sometimes I if I'm kind of wondering or I want like a little bit of meat for some of my newsletter stuff, I'll just put a question in there and usually get some good responses and whatnot.
So we're talking in June 2020, $1 million question that everyone's asking. What in your mind are the top ranking signals that Google's using today?
I mean, I still always think that, there's like an 80% of the signals are usually not going to change. It's the fundamental things like, your how well your content addresses a topic in relation to how other pages address a topic. Do they contain those similar keywords, those similar entities, that similar structure? Are they going to serve the user in a similar way because they just have so many commonalities between, all the ranking content? So, that can be distilled into like quality content, and then links, right? So I think those two, and like a good site structure, those three things are like, in that 80% of ranking signals that are never going to change. And then I feel like Google is just like twisting the dials at each end between that other, 20% that literally like just changed like the wind. So it's to me, it's just about focusing on things like link, the experience for the user, and content that are going to yield the most like predictable long-term results. And then not worrying too much about like little things that sort of enter that like, often we see in updates, fluctuations happen, dips happen, and then recoveries happen. It's just Google's like, just like I said, twisting the knobs on the algorithm and usually correcting any sort of like, ambitious sort of tests on their end.
Do you think we'll ever get to a stage where, particularly inbound links rather than internal links, but do you think we'll ever get to a stage where that as a signal is too gameable or a little bit imprecise and can be replaced completely by something like user experience?
Well, I mean, I think we're moving towards, especially with this last update, we're moving towards a situation where Google favors the larger sites, and those larger sites have lots of branded links, have lots of great content that has great links, and when a site gets to that point, it can release new content that doesn't have any links, and Google will still reward it, like direct links to the page. So I feel like that's maybe a direction where we're replacing the need for direct links going to a page. But overall, that site still needs links to be thought of as an authority. So I don't think links are going away.
And if we could get you to peer into the SEO notebook crystal ball, and we were having this conversation in 10 years might be a bit ambitious because we don't even know if we'll be using a text-based internet then, but say 5 years time, do you think there will be any other ranking signals, anything else that people should be thinking about at the very kind of preemptive stage?
Well, I mean, I don't know what's on Google's roadmap in terms of search, but I'm sure there are a lot of things that they wish they could do today that they can't do because of computing power. So like as things like quantum computing become normal and more widespread and more cost effective, I'm sure Google can like detect unnatural behavior a lot easier. Like even maybe like link velocity is a whole different debate, but like let's just say, for example, let's pretend that link velocity was a thing. Google could detect unnatural patterns a lot easier. It would be able to crawl the web a lot faster. So yeah, like things like that. Anything Google kind of wishes that it could do, I'm sure that it'll be able to do in 5 years. And also like just in terms of like trends in SEO longevity, I feel like B2B probably has the longest legs in terms of SEO. Like it'll be like one of the last things to kind of fizzle out because people, can't do their job from a phone, and I don't think they'll ever be able to really do their job entirely from a phone. So just searching for the questions that they want on desktop, I still feel like probably has the most legs, and that's one of the things that I am trying to focus on the most in terms of who I work with and working with more B2B clients.
That's really interesting. So you see potentially B2C SEO being threatened because of the move to mobile and presumably the increased click-through rate on ads versus organic search, or are we talking about Google's propensity to show knowledge panel stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the ads thing is huge on mobile, right? Like, ads are going to take up the entire screen for a lot of searches on mobile. So that's obviously one consideration. Another thing is like if you think of like a B2C site, and what I mentioned before in terms of like Google not needing links to specific pages. Well, I mean, if content is accessed through a mobile device, and the natural way for us to get links is for content to be accessed, via like research and all that kind of stuff. If a site's traffic is primarily mobile, it's going to have a harder time getting links because like people are not encountering that as much like on a desktop device. So I feel like a lot of like B2C sites are not necessarily going to have like a harder time. I just think Google has to look at how they rank those sites a little bit differently, and maybe that's in part due to maybe that's contributing to the fact that specific content doesn't need links as much, and we're going more towards a world where Google trusts the authority of a site, and once it has that trust, it begins to reward content that doesn't necessarily have links going directly to it.
Got it. Interesting development just in the last, I think maybe in the last day, is the old head of Google Ads is becoming the head of Google Search or something along those lines. But a lot of people in the SEO community, understandably concerned about the message that sends out, about the balance between organic search results and paid search. I guess that would kind of back up what you've just said about ads being kind of an increasing threat to people who are looking for organic traffic.
Yeah, I mean, the Google is always trying to instill fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the minds of SEOs, but it's just another day, like another thing that they want to try and demoralize. It's no problem.
You think that's the real thing that's going here? They're just kind of trying to crush our souls.
Well, I mean, they have vested interest in doing so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can just think about my own history as an SEO, and I've been doing it since 2011. And, there have been times in my career where I've been earlier on, where I've been very worried about, links or, trying anything with any sort of risk to it, because I was afraid that Google was going to penalize me. Whereas now, having, done a lot of cool stuff, it's you're basically SEO is one big calculated risk to a degree. And you just kind of, if you're speaking with your client, you just basically have to make sure that you understand the landscape really well, and you understand what is mimicking natural behavior online in terms of links and all that kind of stuff, and not being too fazed by thinking that if you build a guest post link that you're going to be penalized.
It's a good point, and I think that the danger is that people get terrified into inaction. We talk with businesses, on a weekly basis, that feel like they need to submit a disavow file because they've got one bad link out of 5,000 links, and they're like, oh, I feel like our site's being held back, it must be a penalty or something like that. And there's this kind of unknown cloud out there, and this impression that Google's just looking to penalize people and stuff, and that has obviously been a conscious that hasn't come from nowhere. that has been a play from Google over the years, hasn't it, to try and keep people on the straight and narrow, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a good job at it. Most people that I see in SEO are very much oh, well, let's just look up what Barry Schwartz wrote about 2 years ago and just go by that as the gospel, right? Or just what did John Mueller say, and I'll just go by that. Whereas I don't really do that at all. I go by what my friends say.
Love it. Steve, this has been awesome, and really, really great to see behind the scenes of such incredible SEO results. Where can people find out more about you, and obviously subscribe to SEO Notebook so they can see behind the scenes of more awesome stuff like this?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn is probably my favorite platform to just connect with me. It's Steve Toth, Toth. I'm always posting on there, and just really love that platform. Just starting to get into Twitter more. I'm back sort of getting into Twitter now at SEO_notebook, and then just SEOnotebook.com. Basically, the idea behind that site is that every week I will share one page from my strategy notes out with my list. And I'll be celebrating my 1 year anniversary in just a couple of weeks, and 3,500 people have subscribed so far. So the growth on it has been awesome, and I'm just really happy to be able to share a lot of my knowledge through there.
Awesome. And if you ever get stuck for any ideas, you'll be tapping them for feedback and ideas to put into future editions.
Exactly. Yeah. So right now I'm actually running a contest where people can submit a tip this month, and then the winner will get $500 to their favorite charity.
Love it. Love it. Well, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me.
Hope you found this video useful. And remember, if you enjoyed it, click the little like button. If you want to check out more videos from Exposure Ninja, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button and that little bell icon, or leave us a comment if you've got any questions or suggestions of things that you'd like to see us cover in future. Don't forget, if you want some help with your digital marketing, then you can head over to exposureninja.com/review and request a free website and digital marketing review. What will happen here is we'll ask you a few questions about your website and your goals, and one of our team will then put together a 15-minute video where we'll show you how to improve your website's ranking, your traffic, and your conversions. It's completely free of charge. I know, crazy, right? But danger, there is a chance that you'll become a client after seeing this review because it'll blow your socks off. I have to be honest, but don't let that put you off. Go to exposureninja.com/review, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.